Today's terrifying story, Sleep Paralysis, or Something More Sinister, was written by Sage-1986. It was 2004. I was living in a basement suite with a roommate who was someone I didn't know very well, and my landlord occupied the suite upstairs. This was the first time I lived on my own since turning 18. It was a whole new experience for me, one I wouldn't soon forget. This incident took place late one night. It was around midnight. I'd been trying to sleep for a while as I had a job interview in the morning and needed my rest. No such luck though, as I laid there and tossing and turning. My room was dark and dead silent. The only source of light was coming through the space underneath my bedroom door. I assumed it was my roommate watching TV in the living room or something, but weirdly, I couldn't hear any sounds coming from there. I was confused by this, but didn't give it too much thought, so I continued to try to get to sleep. Out of nowhere, I could hear a man's voice calling my name. Shauna, Shauna. At first, I thought it was my roommate, so I said yeah. No response. I figured I was hearing things due to how tired I was. A few seconds later I heard it again. Shauna, Shauna. This time, it sounded like my landlord. Yeah? I called out again. No response. This happened a couple more times and I began to feel uneasy, as I didn't know why my landlord would be coming downstairs and calling for me at that time of night. Also, the fact that he wouldn't respond was confusing. I figured I would go to talk to him the next day, as I really needed to rest up for my job interview in the morning. After my name had stopped being called out, I noticed that the lights, which I thought were from the TV, were no longer visible from underneath my bedroom door. Figuring my roommate had gone to bed and just turned the TV off, I rolled over onto my back, staring into the darkness that enveloped my room when I jumped out of my skin, realising that the sound was my bedroom door violently swinging open and hitting the wall. Sitting up slightly, staring into the darkness, but I could not see a damn thing, except the doorway. It seemed to be brighter and more visible than anything else. My heart began to race, and my breathing quickened. I could feel something was wrong, but I didn't know why or what was going on. My heartbeat pulsed throughout my body, drowning out my thoughts, and I could feel myself start to shake. I couldn't move. This didn't feel real. It must be a nightmare, but I was wide awake. As I tried to think of a logical explanation, things took a turn for the terrifying. There, in the doorway, was a figure. I swear I stopped breathing as I focused on the figure as it glided flawlessly into the room and turned, facing towards me. The figure became clearer the more I focused on it. It looked to be a young girl, maybe 10 or 11. She was wearing a white dress or nightgown. Her messy, jet black hair hung in front of her face as her head tilted towards the floor. Think of the girl from the movie The Ring, but much scarier. Not being able to move or breathe, all I could do was stare at her, too terrified to look away. She just stood there against the wall. No movement, no sound, just a deafening silence. Even though it had only been a few seconds, to me, it felt like hours. Hours of waiting for something to happen. Just then, her head slowly tilted up, and I could finally see her face, and I wish I hadn't. I could see her pale, white skin, and her black, soulless, sunken eyes burning a hole straight through me. Before I knew it, she jolted towards me wildly. I couldn't scream or breathe, but I was able to throw my blanket up and over my head before she got too close. I could feel the weight of her sitting on my chest, leaning over, her warm and raspy breath enclosed around me. My whole body trembled underneath who or whatever this was. It felt like this was never going to end. At one point, I thought my heart was going to give out. Finally, I could feel the weight lift off me. I prayed that this traumatizing encounter was over, but unfortunately, that was not the case. Even after the weight lifted off me, I just couldn't bring myself to lower the covers instead. I laid there and listened intently. The sound scared the shit out of me. It sounded like this thing, this entity, was throwing itself back and forth against the walls of my bedroom. The strange thing was, this was the only audible sound. There was nothing else. After a few seconds of this, it finally stopped. It stopped as quickly as it had begun. Afterwards, there was an uncomfortable and terrifying silence. I still could not remove the covers. After about 30 minutes of silence, I was able to slowly lower my blanket, completely unsure of what to expect. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. My room returned to being dark, quiet and empty. No sound, no lights, and my door was closed. It were as if none of this had actually happened. My mind could not comprehend what had just happened. Obviously, I did not sleep for the rest of the night, yet I still managed to make it to my job interview in the morning. Of course, I considered the possibility of sleep paralysis, but if it was that, would I have been able to pull the blanket over me? I don't know. This week's shoutouts go out to Dr. Grimm 666, Shige R, Shrenik Bodana, and Charlene Davis. Thank you for the support.